Welcome into the Sports Objective. Very special guest we have. Pirates have a really big week of basketball. I'll tell you what, Bubba, I'm so excited, Bubba Rosenbaum, because you and I both have talked about this in the past. Having Joe Dooley back, this is the most you and I have talked about basketball year-round ever in the history of our fandom. Obviously, going there, being a coach of basketball, all the different things. But I'm so excited to have our next guest.
Yeah, we talked to this guy a little over 3 months ago now. And like you say, Dave, on this time of the year, obviously we're talking Pirate football just over 2 weeks from what we hope is opening day. But it's nice to be talking East Carolina basketball. Welcome back into the show from the Absolute Basketball Company, Jamie Shaw.
Dave, Bubba, I appreciate it coming in, man. It's always fun. Obviously, as I said, my wife graduated from ECU, so we have some ECU stuff in the family. And so it's always good when the Pirates are moving.
No doubt. Jamie, I was telling you beforehand that very excited about what Coach Dooley is doing. Can you give your assessment of just how, we hear about recruits and we're always excited when we have a new Pirate, but how big of a week from judging, you're the outside looking in, how big of a week has this been for the Pirate basketball program?
It's been a huge week. I mean, to get two recruits like this, I feel like what these two guys, Dondre Watson and R.J. Felton, both, they kind of encompass the mentality that Dooley's trying to have there of a tough, gritty nature, blue collar type of mentality. Both these guys epitomize that. They're RJ and Dre are both supreme athletes. They're both very strong guys, and their motors run hot all the time. Dre obviously being 6'9", he's more of a pogo stick type of big player in the block. Put him in the dunk spots, let him run a little bit. He's got some skill, be able to step out a little bit and stuff. But his motor is unbelievable. And then R.J. Felton's probably going to be a fan favorite from day one. He's the type of kid who just eats, sleeps, drinks, working out, and being in the gym. While some guys are out at the clubs and bars or whatever the case, he's going to be in the gym at 1 o'clock in the morning, getting his shots up and doing all that type of stuff. He's just an unbelievable, high character, tough-nosed kid who can really play. Obviously, East Carolina beat out the likes of VCU for him, a Power 5 or a high major team. And then there are tons of high majors who are close to coming in after they watch him play coming up here. It's been a tricky time with that, with COVID and everything.
Let's hone in on Dondre Watson, Dre, as he, I believe he prefers to go by. Like you said, 6'8", 6'9", extremely athletic. Just watching a little bit of his film, he is a bit raw. I think maybe he started playing the game late, if that's correct. Correct me if I'm wrong there, but just talk about his background before he came to Moravian Prep and now what he's done at Moravian Prep in the Hickory area.
Yeah, so, I mean, last year he was at Quality Education. Quality Education is where I guess Quincy Miller went to. There's been a host of players throughout the last 10 years, Sir Dominique Pointer, all that type of stuff. I think they sent 28 so guys, division or high major. He transferred this summer from Quality Education to Moravian, and he's going to be going to Moravian his final year. He, as you said, he's a strong, athletic, high-motor post player. He very active. He's able to switch on defense. He move his feet a little bit on the perimeter on the pick and rolls and stuff. He can also protect the rim and the paint and everything. He's a very active rebounder, both in and out of his area. And he has touch. As you mentioned, Bubba, he's raw still. So that touch sometimes can lead to maybe bad shots at this point in time. But after he gets in the program, he's going to be backing up Jaden Gardner. He's going to be backing up, the 3 or 4 7-footers that are on the roster as well. So he's going to have time to ease in, possibly even redshirt. I don't know that for sure. Let's not put that out there. But, to ease into the program before he's counted on. But once he does, he has those raw tools to really be able to be the type of guy that I think Joe Dooley wants his identity to be within the program.
Jamie, one of the things that comes to mind, and Bubba, you and I have talked about this on this program, is the very fact of, and we've had guests as well about how we needed some more athleticism on the team. Guys that are long and lean, and especially with, I know, like Cy Seymour, the color analyst for the network for the Pirates, has talked about this basically is, you might as well say, is a big boy league. It's a lot of, you and I were talking about pre-show, Jamie, about all the great, programs that are in the American, and you've got to have guys like that's American talent to be in the league. If not, it's going to be a lot of long nights and a lot of losses in the conference, where when you get more of these guys that are athletic, then you stand more of a chance, right? Where you're at least more competitive, nothing else.
Well, no doubt. And just as you mentioned with the league, I mean, if you look at the NBA bubble right now, Wichita State, they have Landry Shamet, they have Fred VanVleet doing things. I mean, Houston, Nate Hinton's about to get drafted and stuff. Like this league produces pros. So you have to have something. You have to have your niche. You have to have something to be able to compete with pros. Dooley's obviously basketball mind is unbelievable on Dooley. He's an unbelievable basketball mind, X's and O's wise, getting in there, scouting and all that type of stuff. Now he's just got to get the players, just as you said, he's got to get the players, he's got to get the long, lean athletes who are tough, who will come in every night, almost like the early, the Bob Huggins style Cincinnati teams, to come in and just knock your block off while running his stuff. And I think that's the identity that he's going for. And I believe, just as you mentioned, with these long, strong, kind of crazy athletes, the roster needs to be made up of.
Jamie, that's what I think you may have mentioned this in the open. I know you mentioned as far as R.J. and Dre, I should say, had offers from the likes of Arkansas, Virginia Tech, Tulsa, to name a few. So is that correct as far as those offers? Because I know that stuff can change as far as maybe an offer being rescinded or not being committable and those sorts of things. So what can you tell us about some of the other programs that were on Dre?
Yeah, no, just as you said, Dre has had those offers all throughout. I think has got his first one, the Arkansas one, sophomore year maybe, and then just kept progressing on throughout. But yes, those were actually reported offers.
Okay, and focusing in now more on R.J. Felton, coming out of Aiken, South Carolina, 6'4", he's versatile. I know you have stuff on your site, so we'll certainly let you or want you to promote that so people can check out his film and hear what RJ had to say about committing to East Carolina. But RJ, like I said, 6'4", he can play both the 1 and the 2. And he's the guy that had offers from VCU, UNC Wilmington, College of Charleston, and interest from a lot of other high major programs. So I noticed one of the things that really stood out is actually a quote that you had with Stephen Igo's article on Hoist the Colors, East Carolina's 24/7 site, as far as him being a grinder and a very intense competitor.
Well, something for me that just really stood out was so this past summer, just a quick story for who RJ is. He's been overlooked in the state of South Carolina. Obviously, this is a very good class there. You got a guy going to Xavier, two going to Florida State, one going to Maryland, one going to Clemson, Wake Forest, all that type of stuff. RJ feels that he's just as good as all those players, if not better than all of them. So what he did during COVID, the second that it opened up, he went to every single open gym in the state of South Carolina. He drove from Aiken, South Carolina, all to Columbia, to Charleston, to Spartanburg, and every single open gym where college players were playing or high school players were playing, to compete against him, to talk about how he's the best, to show that he's the best, and to compete against the top level talent, to prove himself. And he traveled all over, night after night and everything, and then all of a sudden everything started picking up. If you notice, I guess since June maybe is when all of his offers came in. That's just the type of guy he is. He's confident as all get out, but he's competitive as well. He will always have a chip on his shoulder, which will always – the game might not be sexy. It might not be aesthetically pretty, but his production will be off the charts. Almost like Jaden Gardner's kind of, it might not be sexy. It might not be what you draw up. But the production, the wins, the competitive, all that, it's every single time.
I hate to use that word intent.
Go ahead, Dave. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say the word intangibles, that word is used all the time. But there are a lot of times you see guys that are quote unquote 5 stars. It doesn't matter the sport. We talk about this all the time with football, especially. But I don't really care about the 5-star. I love when you're getting me excited to think about a guy like RJ that literally they put the work in, they put the effort in, and he eats, sleeps, drinks basketball. He's not there just for a scholarship or just because his best friend that went there, or his girlfriend went there. Yeah. He's there because he really wants to compete. And the great thing that East Carolina has going for it, we talked about it, is the fact, and Dooley's told me at press conferences, the very fact of when there's shoot-arounds, he said, guys, the best recruiting tool we have is our league. When you have like you're talking about, you can name school after school after school that has great talent in our league, in the American, And those guys, another thing that Bubba and I laughs at me for is the very fact when I was going to East Carolina, we were lucky to be on maybe the CAA tournament was on on television on home team sports, and then maybe a couple conference games for the CAA, and that's about it. We maybe had 4 or 5 basketball games on when I was an undergrad there at East Carolina, and now I feel so spoiled. I'm going, oh my God, like almost every game is on. It's a lot of games on now. A great deal, a testament, I think, to Mike Oresco, his relationship to ESPN. But that's a great thing, right, Jamie? The very fact these guys that are good talent, they know they're going to get playing time with Joe Dooley. They know that they're going to be playing in a great league.
Well, yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head, because when I was talking to RJ right before he committed, he mentioned the TV thing. Like, he mentioned the fact that his family is very close and everything. That if they're not up at the game, that they're going to be on TV at least more than half their games every single season. Playing against the top level talent, and just as you said, he gets to go against guys that are probably going to be possibly pros, and that's where he wants to be. So those two things that you just mentioned, Dave, were huge selling points for him, because he wanted to play against the best. He wanted to play against the guys that are going to be where he's going. And he also wants to play on TV and get some of that notoriety and love and all that type of stuff too.
Jamie, speaking of exposure in a different sense, Noah Farrakhan, big addition for this year's class. You saw R.J. Felton reference it. You've seen several guys that have either committed to East Carolina or that are strongly considering East Carolina reference, hey, they got Noah Farrakhan.
Yeah.
Things must be looking up in Greenville. So just talk about that, because I know that's something specifically that R.J. Felton, like I said, referenced.
Well, in RJ's sense, I think that he likes the ability, just like when I was talking to George Wright Easy the other day, after he told me that RJ committed. Those two can play together because they can both play the one or the two. You can have one of them initiate the offense, you can have the other one scoring, and they can both toggle in between those two positions together. And I think that was very attractive to RJ, that he wasn't coming in as specifically a one or specifically a two. He could play beside another high level player who he can hold accountable and depend on to do both of them as well. But in the sense of the overall thing with Noah, he's a viral guy. He's a viral sensation, and everything these days is social media, especially with the kids. There was a time there where you couldn't go a single week on looking on Twitter or looking on Instagram without a Noah Farrakhan video, getting, hundreds of thousands of views and all that type of stuff. He's a known name nationally. Noah Farrakhan is a brand. So, obviously when his name, image, likeness stuff starts coming and everything, that's going to be interesting to see how he does with that. But he's a brand. He's an own brand, and all the kids know him because of all the overtime and all the slam and all these hoop hype and all this type of stuff. He was on there every week for a year with a dunk or a crazy play or a highlight film of getting 50 or playing IMG, traveling all over the country when he was there. And then his senior year when he was just all over the place. And that's attractive because these kids look at that. These kids are scrolling through Instagram looking at Noah Farrakhan videos, and to sit there and say, wow, I can play with him. That's a huge thing because it gets you in the door. Recruiting is all about getting you in the door. If you sit there and call like, hey, Bubba, we just got Noah Farrakhan. Oh, well, hell, you got Noah? Well, y'all must be doing something right. Let me look into it a little bit more. And then it's up to the staff to build the relationship and close the deal. But Noah Farrakhan opens the door.
And Jamie, with that very fact of Farrakhan, I remember we had you before. I'm tickled to death with this class. And the great thing, I told Coach that it doesn't take that many players, to really turn a program around. I said, I was like talking about football. He said, yeah, but he said, we only have a handful of, scholarships every year. And we got to make sure that if we make a mistake on one or two of them, that's a really bad class, where football has a little more breathing room. However, having said that, I really believe, I remember when Jaden Gardner committed, and I was like, okay, this is really cool. We got a local kid. I'd be lying if I said that I thought he would be as good as, I didn't think he would be like nearly as good as he is now. And I think Coach would tell you, Coach Dooley, right, Bubba, would tell you right now that kid loves to be coached. He puts a lot of pressure on himself to be better. Mm-hmm. You take a kid like that and you can really build around it. And then you get Farrakhan and now the two this week. I really am excited about basketball in Greenville.
There's a lot to be excited about. And I think too, Dave, to your point, that's a hell of a job by the staff, because I'm not sure that if anybody tells you they thought Jaden Gardner would be as good as as he is right now, that they are not telling you the truth.
Yeah.
You know, what he's done and what he's made of himself and all that type of stuff, you know, it's been unbelievable to see. But this is trending upward. I mean, you know, you have 5 guys returning off of last year's, the top 5 scorers from last year's team returning this year. You know, there's incredible size. Dave, just as you were mentioning earlier, I can't remember if it was on or off air, but earlier when we were talking, you know, knocking down a couple extra shots here, a couple extra shots there.
Bubba.
Maybe there's 3 or 4 more wins in the bag just with that, you know, and that's an 8-game swing right there. You know, if you win 4 more games, and you know, it's little things here, little things there, but stuff seems to be coming together, and the roster seems to look as a roster as opposed to just, you know, players just placed here and there, here and there, here and there. It's like, oh, well, okay, this kind of fits together now. And, you know, with Dooley at the head, with his basketball brilliance and all that type of stuff, it's all he needs is the players.
Hey, Bubba, I was talking about the fact on overtime. I know many times you and I on the phone getting ready for our next show, we were, you know, collaborating on different guests and everything during basketball season. How many times did you and I talk about, in fact, you brought it to my attention about 3-point shooting, and then I started looking at it, and I told you I wasn't a stats guy like Bubba is. Bubba's like, I'm like, yeah, I'm not worthy when it comes to stats. And I said, Bubba, I mean, I'm not a stats guy, and I look at it, and if we make 2 or 3 more 3-pointers, it was 6 games, Bubba, last year? If we made just 2 or 3 3-pointers,
something like that.
it was not.
It was well documented. It was hard for me not to remember those numbers the way I look at the box score anyway, and the way I had it drilled in my head, hearing it from Coach Dooley, Coach Rock, and Coach Killius at that time, whoever. But yeah, I was talking to Reed Lowe's, who played for the Pirates back in the late '80s and early '90s, and we were just saying there's no way that the 3-point shooting can't be at least a little better this year.
Yeah. You know, and you make a couple more of those here and there, you get a couple breaks, couple more rebounds, couple block shots and stuff, and you know, that's an entirely different season.
Jamie, kind of moving on. Go ahead, Dave, if you had a question about one of these guys.
I was just going to ask you about, in general, about the program. One question that this is like a man on the street question that we're hearing, that Bubba and I are hearing a lot, and you see it on message boards, that we've gone, it's like feast or famine. I think it's feast now when it comes to the number of big guys, but we have, what is it, Bubba, 4 7-footers, and we're hearing people say, oh, there's got to be somebody that's going to transfer, but maybe not. I don't know.
Yep. DeBow, Luster, Coleman, and now, of course, bringing in
Fifi Kwanzaa.
Yeah, and Derek Fifi Kwanzaa.
Yeah, well, and in talking with the staff, that's what they want. They love bigs, you know, and you know, I think all the bigs, what they did bringing them in was they're all their own pace. You know, like the big guy with Charles last year came in, he wasn't ready, so him being able to sit and stuff, now he's going to be able to get more minutes and play, and they have high aspects for him. Just like with Kwanzaa, they you know, he graduated high school, they sent him to a prep year. Now he's coming in ready to get minutes. You know, so it's almost, you know, I graduated from the University of South Carolina in football and stuff, and we haven't had a good quarterback in a long time. And so we would have to split quarterbacks. So they would always say, if you have 2, you don't have 1. So I don't know if that's the same in basketball with centers, but you know, to have a 7-footer by committee, to where you can get 40 minutes out of a 7-footer being on the floor most of the time, and have that person, you know, provide different looks. Maybe one of them's a shot blocker, one's a shooter, one's a rim runner, one's, you know, different looks depending on the matchup. You know, there's a lot of value there, because you can't teach 7 foot.
No doubt. Hey, Bubba, with that very fact of, that's one thing we haven't had. We had Jaden Gardner 2 years ago be the center, you know, and that's one of the things that, getting back to the fact, I've said it a lot, but when you're in the American, Jamie, with all the talent we have, if we don't have a rim protector, it's oh my gosh, a whole bunch of conference losses, and you pretty much have to rely on the only wins you're going to get, or the number of wins, a good number of them are going to be non-conference. So now that I really feel like with the 7-footers, maybe I'm old school, and I can hear people saying right now, Dave, the game has changed where you need a lot of 3-point shooting and not, but I still believe you still need at least one rim protector in the game, like you said, at all times.
Well, the thing about it is you get 13 roster spots. You know, why not have 4 7-footers and then 9 other guys to do the other, you know, 4 positions? I mean, that still gives you a 2 deep and an extra player for the other 4 positions. I mean, a 7-footer is so rare. If you're going to miss big. It's just kind of the old adage. Load them up.
A guy I was going to bring up, Jamie, Johnny Gardner, one of our viewers, and was thinking along the same lines of Breon Pass.
Mm-hmm.
He just said, Jamie, your thoughts on Breon?
Johnny, I love Breon. First and foremost, Breon's a great kid. I mean, he just turned 17 years old. He's going into his senior year in high school. He just turned 17 a month ago or so. He's an unbelievable kid. He's been a dual sport athlete his whole life. He had 15 or so Power 5 football offers. And in June 1, he announced that he was going to focus on basketball in college with no offers at that point. So he turned away from SEC offers in football to say, you know what, I'm going to bet on myself and play basketball. And it's a great story, too, because his father passed away a year ago, who was his high school coach and all that type of stuff, and unexpectedly passed away. And Breon said that he wanted to follow his father's footsteps because his dad played basketball in college. So he wanted to follow his father's footsteps. So he was going to play basketball in college too, bet on himself, do all that type of stuff. Now, that's not to say that Breon was not a good basketball player, because as a career, he's got 1,760 points for his career. He shot 47% from 3, with 210 makes for a career, averaging 7.5 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals per game for his 3 years in high school. And he's also played in 3 consecutive state championship football games. So the kid's an unbelievable kid. If you get 20 minutes to sit down and talk with him, he's an unbelievable kid. He's a great locker room kid, but not only that, he's a hell of an athlete. And he's the type of kid that wherever he goes, he's going to bring positivity and success to that program.
Hey, Jamie, is this a possibility where Mike Houston and Joe Dooley could come together and say, look, we'll give you a chance to play football and basketball. We know your dad loves you're doing this for your dad, but we'd love to have you on the football team too.
Well, I mean, that's up to the football coach if he wants to give up the scholarship, because obviously if he plays both, you got to go on the football scholarship. But I'm sure Dooley would love that because he would have a scholarship level player not on scholarship. So it depends on who you ask, I'm sure.
Yeah, get a guy of that caliber without having to spend any money on him. Not bad. Yeah. But in addition to the 3 we've discussed so far with Dre Watson, R.J. Felton, and now Breon Pass. I know a guy that I saw you mention, and you actually put out some content and a video of him today. Is it Jai Smith?
Yes.
So talk about Jai, and then also is it Khalil Mading?
Yes. Mading.
Talk about those 2, and then we'll move on to some other guys if we have time.
Sure. Yeah, Jai. So he played this past year up at St. Thomas More in Connecticut. He just announced he's going to transfer back down here to North Carolina. He spent a lot of time. He spent his middle school years in North Carolina. He's originally from Syracuse, New York. Middle school years in North Carolina, moved back up to the Northeast, and now he's moving back down to Durham. So he's going to be at Durham Bull City Prep next year. 6'8", 6'9", just a insanely high motor athlete. He's got a 40-inch vertical at 6'8", 6'9". He can guard up and down the lineup. He can guard all the way from the 3 to the 5. He's nonstop motor. And he's not your typical, like he's got a very upbeat temperament about him too. Like, you sit there and talk to him, he's talking about like Dragon Ball Z and all this type of stuff too. It's kind of a refreshing kid as to how how he's not letting the national ranking. He's probably going to be ranked in the top 150 these next rankings and stuff. How he's not letting all this type of stuff, being on Zoom calls with Penny Hardaway and all that go to his head. He's still a kid that loves what he loves, and that's very refreshing to see. But he's a terror on the court.
Now, Jamie, a follow-up. I'm sorry, Dave, but while we were talking about Jai Smith, I saw, I don't know when he had released this. It appeared to be a top 12 graphic that he had pinned on his Twitter. Now, have things changed? Because I know his comments were saying that he really liked what East Carolina brought to the table. Yes,
things have changed. I mean, that was put out prior to probably these last 8 offers that he's gotten. So, and I think where things are at right now, I think it's going to be a big difference too from where it ends up being. He's not necessarily a guy who could play at every single high major school, but he could play at the highest level for the system that he fits into. So if there's like whatever the highest level is that likes undersized 5s who really, Draymond Green type, PJ Tucker type guys that are 6'9" and can defend all the way up and down the lineup and, sits in the dunk spots and does all that stuff. He can play at the highest level of that. And that's what he brings to it. And he's a great kid.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. The very fact, so you don't think are the chances low that East Carolina gets him now, or do you think that we'll have a shot? I mean, one of the things that I've noticed, even with Farrakhan, with a lot of these guys, is that, which is obviously so true, is stating the obvious, but recruiting is about building relationships. And I think Farrakhan, the fact that he had a tie there with Joe Dooley being there from Jersey and all that. But what about Josh Smith? Is that something that maybe the relationships that the other coaches, maybe Dooley has with him, that could play a factor?
Well, as of right now, East Carolina is the closest school in proximity that has offered him. So hopefully they're building an incredible bond with him right now. It'd be even better if, obviously they can get on the road and he could come to some football games or whatever the case may be too. But, I think as long as things stay where they're at right now, maybe if they progress a little bit more too, even, I think they'll still be in the game. But it could be one where things get really, really, really out there. So it could be determined. If things stay as they are now, yes, I think they have a shot at them. I think they'll probably be in a Final Five or whatnot. But if things continue to go, which they very well could, it'll be tough to hang on.
What about Mauding? He's in Burlington, correct?
Correct. Yeah, Burlington School. Yeah, Coel Mating. He's a long, rangy athlete. He came over from High Point. He was at High Point Central, I believe, before Burlington School. Transferred to Burlington School. Played there last year. They had a 6'9" kid go to Rice, and then Jaden, who went to Elon. So they graduated 2 guys. It's going to be his team this year. 6'10", and I keep joking with him that he picked the wrong sport. If he was a 400-meter runner, he'd be unbelievable. I mean, the guy just runs. I mean, it's unbelievable. I haven't seen somebody switch ends of the floor as quickly as he does. And he'll get 4 to 6 points a game just beating his man down the floor and finishing. He's a good weak side shot blocker. He can put the ball on the floor and he can shoot it. The biggest thing for him is going to be adding strength. He's very thin, very, very thin. His biggest thing is going to be adding strength as he continues to add strength, as he gets into the program, as he does all that, the weight. That shouldn't be something that colleges are scared of, because, they pay people good money to be strength coordinators and to be nutritionists and all that type of stuff too. So once he adds that, gets into the program, he's got a ton of tools.
Jamie, are there other ones? I know, can you put that up on the screen, Bub? I know Johnny had another question about another guy. Daniel Nixon still seems to be pretty high on us.
Yes. So Daniel Nixon is just transferring into Winston-Salem Christian. He was in school in Pennsylvania this past year. He's a big-bodied kind of he's like a wing version of Jaden Gardner, kind of a tweener. But he's like a wing version of Jaden Gardner in the fact that he can put it on the floor, he can create, but he's just a big, strong-bodied guy at 6'7". You can run some offense through him. He can pass the ball probably in the American. He can toggle in between a little bit of a playmaking wing as well as a high post type of 4 if you want to go undersized and kind of have him run around a little bit too. A defensive type of player who's got a unique skill set on the offensive end, being able to both create, pass the ball, and get downhill off the bounce.
That's pretty exciting. Again, talking to Jamie Shaw, Absolute Basketball. For those of you just joining, recruiting, Pirates have a big week, 2 big ones as far as getting 2 big recruits committing. What about as far as we talk about the program itself? Eventually, it's going to get to the point where pretty much every single roster spot, the guy is going to be not just taking up space. And I'm not, no offense to people now, but it's going to get to a point where when we talk about the competing at the highest level, I think we're definitely going to be more competitive. And I think you said beforehand early in the show that if there's some way that we can finish middle of the pack, if you finish it halfway through the pack, then that's a great start. Another great thing for Coach Dooley and staff.
Yeah, no question. I think with Dooley had to come in and flip a roster. He had to pretty much change the entire culture of the locker room and flip an entire roster of I guess 13 players keep Jaden Gardner, and then everybody else, aren't his guys. So that takes time, that takes process and stuff. And hopefully the administration has bought into his doing that, because having to replace 12 guys or keep a couple guys that aren't good enough or whatever the case may be to juggle that takes 4 or 5 years to be able to do. And he's done that. He's flipped the roster and got his guys in and obviously a shorter amount of time than that. So now it's just building from there, just as you said, Dave, getting better at each position. And I think he's in the process of doing that. I think he's in the process of not only building depth, but getting better at each position, building the identity, as we've talked about already, of the team, building the type of voice that he wants to have and the type of what they're trying to do within the, within the league and within the locker room. I think also too, they're seeing the type of players they need to get. They're seeing the league that they're in. And they're seeing the type of players that they need to get to win. And that takes the time too. Obviously Dooley was at Kansas and then Florida Gulf Coast. And now that he's back at ECU in the American, which they weren't in whenever he came from the first time, is an entirely different league. The composition, the makeup of the players, as you said earlier, athletic and strong and long and lengthy and all that type of stuff, the makeup of the league. So they're figuring it out. And I think everything's on an upward trajectory right now. And as you said, I think there's a very real chance. Make a couple more shots, get a couple more rebounds here and there, a couple more hustle plays go their way. Halfway through the pack is a damn good finish in the American.
And Jamie, talking about the schedule, one of the things that Bubba and Kyle's not with us, he's working and actually off right now, but the very fact that what's frustrating for us is, the American's going to be a tough league. And it seems like last year, Bubba, I'm trying to think of the game that I was at the press conference. Now I'm drawing a blank, but it'll come to me. Anyway, we lost some games we shouldn't have lost. That seems like it'd be as far as non-conference goes. And that's very frustrating. But I'm hoping with having the second year that the guys are together, pretty much the whole team, like you said, and now add Jaden Gardner. And then with the guys coming in, you have the very fact that those non-conference games won't be as much of a challenge. Or it shows the growth in the team as far as the program, when before they might have lost more of the games and they should have and all that. But now it seems like the games, they're starting to win the games that they're supposed to win, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah,
no, absolutely. And that's really the sign of a good program. If a program can go from day one and win all of the games that they're supposed to win, that's a pretty good program.
Now, Jamie, in addition to the 2 commits and the 4 prospects that we've talked about, are there others in the state of North Carolina or regionally, or maybe even a little farther up and down the East Coast that the Pirates are in on that you know of?
Well, I'll tell you what it sounds like that Dooley, and in talking with the staff and all that type of stuff, they want to get older. So I think they're going to be heavy players in the JUCO and transfer markets. Obviously, JUCO just started this past weekend with an event and everything. It wouldn't surprise me to see a lot of JUCO offers, not a lot, but the majority of their offers going out being JUCO tier players, and then also obviously being very heavy into the transfer market once that comes about in December as well.
As far as the one thing that is on everybody's mind right now, with certainly with football season being imminent, is with COVID-19. Have you heard anything? I know it's so early to speculate, but one of the things that we've been worried about, obviously, is when would the basketball season be played? I know Coach Mike Krzyzewski at Duke is talking about that that's imperative. We have to play March Madness. We have to have that tournament. And like with Bubba, I think Bubba, you were the first to mention it back when all this was going on. Why not just delay March Madness a month or two? Remember back in April or May, we had to push it back a month or two instead of losing $1 billion that tournament brings in for the NCAA. But have you heard anything, Jamie, when it comes to COVID-19 about maybe conferences or maybe the mess that we have going on like that? Maybe they would move it back to start a season like a month or two later, like December or January, to start our conference only schedule for basketball?
Well, most of the coaches that I talk to right now, they're moving ahead as if they're starting in November. They have their opening date. They're moving in that manner. However, behind the scenes, they're all pretty skeptical. Some of them are doomsday-ish that they'll not have a season at all. majority of them think that it'll be conference only type of stuff. I think from an economic business standpoint, at the end of the day, they NCAA is a business. They have to make money and stuff, and they can't afford to not have the tournament. They can't afford to not have the tournament 2 years consecutive. So I think they're going to do everything that they can, just like the NCHSAA this year. They moved the seasons around and stuff, so they'll still have the state championships and be able to bring in that money and all that type of stuff. I think the NCAA is going to do every single thing that they can to have these postseason tournaments and the bowl games and the NCAA tournament and all that type of stuff, because they need to keep their doors open. But a lot of the college coaches, they're moving forward as if they're starting in December, but behind the scenes they're a little bit skeptical and thinking that it might just be some conference play type stuff.
Yeah, Dave, along those lines, the only thing I had seen definitively is the Pac-12, and they said that they weren't going to play any until at least January 1 of 21. But otherwise, as far as any non-conference action goes, maybe it can be a situation where you've heard that bubble.
The bubble
has gone so well, that concept with the NBA. So maybe in East Carolina's case, maybe some of the regional opponents, not necessarily ACC, but teams like App State and Charlotte and people like that. Maybe there's some way we can make a bubble happen for a few days where you can at least not your traditional 12 or whatever non-conference games, but at least get 5 or 6 in before league play rolls around.
Lock them in at Minji's and get Wilmington up, or Campbell and Wake Forest and East Carolina and NC State and somebody else, and call it a day and have everybody play everybody. And I think that's a brilliant idea.
As far as the media is concerned, I don't think our wives would like that too much, being in a bubble where it would be fun for us, but I'm sure that our families wouldn't like that. I can't imagine, like you're hearing with hockey. I know there's like 80 days. We're talking to Dave Ryan last night that those guys like in Toronto and the Western, and also with the Western site that they have in NHL, and then with Orlando is like 2 or 3 months. I mean, it's pretty much
just 3 months right now.
Yeah. It's pretty rough. I'm a family guy, so that's really rough, but I understand why they're doing it. And I think that the pro teams, pro leagues, I should say, have done a great job with that. I definitely think that we've got to find a way, if there's doomsday as far as if this thing continues into the spring, God forbid, but if it does, we've got to find a way to move on with it and then living with it, even though we don't want to live with it, obviously. But I can't imagine, Bubba and Jamie, I heard the other day that the league, as far as the Pac-12, they were going to have something like $70 million to stay a league, to borrow the money or whatever, because things are so bad. And I just can't imagine. And I'm not saying, I know what they're saying there, which is definitely the right thing to do, is to, and I admire them for it too. They're looking out for the student athlete. At the same time, at the end of the day, this is all a business. And when the fact for us, it's very scary to think about East Carolina. Jamie, we found out from John Gilbert, what was it, Bubba? Sorry, not John Gilbert, but Ron Mitchelson. I know for just as far as the university alone, I think with kids not being in the dorms and all that sort of thing, it was something, 55 million that we're losing.
Something like that. I don't recall.
Anyway, you look over it like in California. So I was talking to the head coach at UC Riverside last week. I had him on my podcast, and they haven't even seen their players yet. You have schools. I know App State, they had their players get on campus a month and a half ago, and they just started on in-person schooling last Monday. You got the schools in California. California is being incredibly conservative with this whole thing, and their players he hadn't seen his players since, he just got the job a couple months ago too. So he got his job during COVID, and he hasn't even been able to see his new team or anything during this time. So, it's different things with different scenarios with different parts of the country, and I think that adds a layer of weirdness to it. I guess is everybody's going through something different.
Jamie, as far as obviously we're pro Pirates here, but obviously other schools, other programs, what are some for those that are like me that are college basketball and basketball period, how much we love the game of basketball. Are there other guys to look out for as far as maybe guys that are going to different colleges in North Carolina, or guys that are North Carolina products that are going out of state that we need to watch on? I think we're probably going to be watching a lot of basketball instead of in the gyms. We're going to be watching them on TV this year.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a couple guys, I guess, a couple of Eastern North Carolina guys too. I know Dontrez Styles from Kinston over there. He's going to be headed down to North Carolina. He's largely considered the top prospect in the state of North Carolina in the 2021 class. You know, you're looking at DeMarco Dunn, who has not, he's uncommitted right now. He's a top 100 player. He's Fayetteville, 910 guy. I think he just released his top 8 the other day. That off the top of my head, Clemson, Georgia, Vanderbilt, Arizona, North Carolina, and some others. We're on that list for him. Lucas Taylor, another guy. He's uncommitted right now. Vanderbilt, Marquette, all that type of stuff. Heritage, obviously went to high school with Jaden Gardner. ECU was Lucas's first offer. The state of North Carolina, I was texting with Kevin Keats last night. The state of North Carolina is deep right now with high major talent in the 2021 class, and we even have some more moving in. Guys like Jonas Adu, who's coming up out of nowhere, who might end up actually being a 7-footer who's the top prospect in the state, going to Liberty Heights this year. Yet Isaac Farrer coming down from Indiana, you know, also going to Liberty Heights, 6'9" guy. And then another guy going to Liberty Heights, PJ Edwards, coming in from Minnesota, 6'5" wing, who people compare to like a Drew Holiday type of player, Danny Green type. You know, just North Carolina is loaded. I mean, you know, you got Kean Itejere from Raleigh, who's going to Texas, 6'8", 6'9", just jumping jack. You know, there's a lot of guys. You know, if you're a basketball fan, there's a lot of guys in the eastern part of the state that you know, you can go catch a high school game of, or continue to watch as they progress into the college ranks.
Jamie, a couple of other programs I want to ask you about, and then maybe you can touch on some others as well. But coaches that are earlier in their tenures, Ron Sanchez going into year 3 now at Charlotte, only won 8 games in year 1, won 16 a year ago. So touch on them, and then also App State, Dustin Kearns comes in year 1 after doing a tremendous job, down at Presbyterian, and wins 18 games with Mountaineers and goes 11-9 in the Sun Belt.
Yeah, so we'll start with Sanchez. He's the first one you asked about. He was taken over for Mark Price. Again, kind of a thing like Joe Dooley taking over for Jeff Lebo, a different type of player. So Ron Sanchez wants defensive toughness. He wants offensive efficiency and defensive toughness. Mark Price wanted skill. He wanted some people to be able to shoot the ball and do all that type of stuff. Completely different player, all that. So Sanchez, year 1, he took Mark Price's players and stuff and tried to implement what he was doing, and square peg, round hole, 8 wins, all that type of stuff. Year 2, he was able to implement his stuff. He was able to implement his pack line defense, the offense, you know, using the majority of the shot clock, each possession, getting the best shot possible and knocking it in at an efficient rate and all that type of stuff. And he was able to bring in those type of players, and they you know, bought into it and all that type of stuff. And now his roster in year 3 looks even more like a Ron Sanchez type of roster. Unbelievable guy, one of the most kind-hearted people you'll meet. And he, you know, so he's changing the DNA in the locker room there. Then you have App State with Dustin Kearns. Dustin Kearns is a brilliant young mind in the thing. I mean, hell, he came in like 6th place with Presbyterian in the Big South, back when the Big South had, you know, Ed Polite, Chris Clemens, and all that type of stuff. You know, made it to the 2nd round of the tournament there, which is unheard of at Presbyterian, you know, given their history and facilities and all that type of stuff. You know, so got the job at App, and Dustin does a great job of controlling the things that a coach can control. He can't control if the shot goes in, but what he can do is he can control the sidelines out of bounds plays to where they get an open look. He can control the offensive flow to where they get the best shot possible. And he does an incredible job of controlling the things that he can control and having his team kind of buy in and his coaching staff buy in to that type of stuff as well. You know, and he, again, also changing the kind of DNA with that. Fox loved long, rangy athletes. You know, Kearns is going to get some more skill guys while maintaining long-range athletes, because in that league you have to have that as well. But you know, it's you know, he's he does a good job, and he has a quirky way of looking at players too. He'll look at guys that don't have any offers and be like, this guy fits perfectly with what I do. I don't care what the noise says. I don't care where people rank him at, what they say. This guy fits what I do. I'm going to take him. And then that guy comes in, starts for 3 years, and whatever it is. So two great, unbelievable guys in their own right. I expect good things for if their programs can keep them around. Just the same with Dooley. You said Dooley, you want him to be around for 20 years. I don't know if you do, because if he's around for 20 years, that means he hadn't been winning big, because when he starts winning big, he's going to get the highest level guys coming after him and all that type of stuff too. And, I think that Sanchez and Kearns are the same way. I think Dooley's the same way too. I think once they get to 5 years, they're going to go on this upward trajectory of whatever it is, and just sustainability of winning, and have the big boys offer a bag of money.
Another big thing I know with Coach Kearns, from just hearing other interviews with him and following that program on Twitter and so forth, I know it's quote, take the stairs. Being willing to go the extra mile and put in the hard work to get the results.
Yeah. So I talked to him probably 3 weeks ago, maybe, on my podcast or whatever, and he says that every year that he's ever had a team, he started this when he was an associate down with Mike Young at Wofford, and took it to Presbyterian, now up at Appalachian State, is that he shows a video of a rat in the midst of a bunch of cats, and the rat like going crazy and scaring away all the cats and stuff. And he says that that's how he wants the mentality of his team to be, coming in with no expectations, the underdog and all that type of stuff, and then just going crazy and scaring everybody away, so that when you leave App State, when you're on the table getting iced in the morning, it's like, damn, we played App State last night, man. They beat our ass. Like he wants to have that type of mentality on his team. And yeah, taking the stairs, bring your lunch pail, the blue collar, the hard work. That's what he swears by.
Jamie, as far as the scheduling goes, I know for East Carolina, there are a lot of people that, speaking of, we're talking about non-conference. If there is a non-conference, are there? I know you're not going to tell the coach what to do, but for those of us fans that are talking, some message boards, there are certain teams that Pirate fans want to see on the schedule every year. Like, for example, the World on the Shore with UNC Wilmington. Bubba and I tell you what, Bubba, how was that? They did a brilliant thing with when the students were away, and then they were also having trouble selling tickets. So what they did is, guys like Bubba and his dad Gary, they let us sit there down on the bleachers near the court, and that place was rocking. It was loud there at Williams Arena and Minji's Coliseum, and it was so great. That was the Charlotte game, right, Bubba?
It was.
And that was like a great atmosphere. But are there teams that maybe that you can think of offhand that you would feel like with East Carolina? I know I'm putting you on the spot, but there as a basketball fan that you would like to see?
Well, I think any time that you can have a natural rival, I think is great. Obviously I mentioned before, I went to South Carolina, so it's great every few years to be able to play South Carolina, East Carolina football games and stuff. Now, when it comes to that, I think that the rivalries in basketball would need to be closer, but the NC States of the world, the Wilmingtons of the world, anybody that's kind of, within a 2-hour driving distance, to where you can have a single household that has one person that went to this school and then another person that went to that school, and, kind of have that type of inner type of rivalries or whatnot. I think is a great thing. I think East Carolina needs to do a better job of that. I think that they need to do in the marketing department, promoting rivalries. I think rivalries are a great thing. I think it gets people jazzed up. Charlotte's a little bit far away, but I mean, if it's Charlotte, it's Charlotte. If it's App State, it's App State. But I think there needs to be those type of games, a couple of them every year on the schedule, to where it just means a little bit more to the fans that, I would like to beat them pretty bad this year. All things aside, obviously. So again, South Carolina, Clemson's that for us. We can go undefeated. When I say undefeated, we could lose every single game of the year. We beat Clemson. That's a pretty good year. So, and that's, I feel like that just adds to it with the fans and the promotion of it, the marketing of it, call it a name, give it a trophy, all that type of stuff. Rivalries are awesome.
And that's one that you referenced, the war at the shores, they used to call it in the old CAA days with East Carolina and UNC Wilmington. That one is coming back this year. I don't know what happened before. I think it was something maybe more so on the financial side of things and just couldn't agree to terms. But assuming non-conference basketball is played this year, UNC Wilmington is coming to Minges.
Yeah, and that's huge too. And I'd love to see the marketing department put a little push behind it too, like really promote, like, go on Twitter, do a Twitter campaign and be like, beat the heck out of the Seahawks or whatever it is, or like, we're going to bring a boat paddle, whatever the war of the beaches is, or, we're going to bring that back with us this year. Or, I think the trash talking, it's not necessarily trash talk. I think it's just excitement. I think it's fan engagement. I think it's getting the donors involved. I think it's getting the fans involved, the students involved, because if you're not talking about and promoting it, if you're not excited about it, why am I excited about it? You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. And I'll go back 20 years. This was when Bill Harrion was at East Carolina. And then you had, I'm trying to remember at that point if it was Jerry Wainwright or who was got in the Seahawk program. But whatever the case, this game was down at Trask Coliseum. My dad and I had gone down there, and we were pulling up to the arena, walking in after we were parked, and they had an old junk car, and they had a sledgehammer, and it had BDCU or whatever on the side of it, spray painted, and they were just hammer over and over.
I think that's awesome. I think everything about that's great. I mean, so when we would go to games at Georgia, the visitors parking lot was over here and the stadium was over here, and in between you had to walk through the frat houses. That was brutal. God, it was brutal going into the game, and heaven forbid if you lose the game, brutal walking out. That just adds to it, man. As long as everything stays non-violent and all that type of stuff, that just adds to it. That adds to the excitement, because I don't know, it's just friendly banter and all that type of stuff too. I think that's awesome to be able to, I'm sure that, charge a quarter, get a sledgehammer to the car, you make a little bit of money off of it and stuff. And that just adds to excitement. And it doesn't have to, just having built-in rivalries is cool.
Certainly, Jamie, I appreciate you staying longer with us. We love basketball, we love sports. How can folks find your work? And obviously, I know you have the podcast, so if you will take the time before we go to promote that, and we'll get out of here.
So you can check me out on Twitter at Jamie Shaw 5. That's JAMIE SHAW 5. You can check me out on Instagram, Jamie spelled the same way _Shaw 5, Jamie _Shaw 5 on Instagram. On YouTube. I do all sorts of interviews. I do them with college coaches. I do them with elite level prospects. I do them with just NBA prospects, all that type of stuff, as well as mixtapes and all that type of stuff on YouTube. That's Absolute Basketball Experience with Jamie Shaw. And then on my podcast, it's you can find it on Apple, you can find it on Spotify, whatever it is. It's the Absolute Basketball Experience with Jamie Shaw. So both on YouTube and podcast, Absolute Basketball with Jamie Shaw, and then Instagram and Twitter.
All right, man. Appreciate you very much, Jamie. Great stuff as always, and glad to have the relationship we have with you, because you always, man, when you I know my boss told me I don't have to have the answers, but I got to call the people that have the answers, and that's what we do when it comes to recruiting and basketball. Appreciate you, man, very much.
I appreciate y'all. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jamie. Had fun with Jamie there with Absolute Basketball. Bubba, I know before we go, we got a big show. It's a doubleheader today on the Sports Objective. I know you got to run real quick, and so do I, but I want to promote that and a couple of the upcoming shows we have.
Yeah, tonight we'll be talking more basketball. We'll be joined by Matt McCarthy, we hope. He's having some technical difficulties.
Coach Mac, awesome.
Yeah, not so much on his side of things, but he was just he had downloaded Google Chrome in the way he needed to, and just was still running into some issues that we don't typically encounter. So I'm trying to get some answers for him. So we'll have Coach Mack at some point, be it tonight or later on. And then in addition to Coach Mack, we will also be talking to Mike Golden. Coach Golden spent at least 5 or 6 years, pretty much all of the Skip Holtz era, and then 1 year with Ruffin McNeil. So we'll talk to him, and hopefully H. Rob as well. I'm sure those two will play off one another nicely. So we'll have that for you. And then as far as 50 Pirates in 50 days, coming up tomorrow night, 8 o'clock, George Kuntz, of course, East Carolina Hall of Famer, and then also Green Bay Packers great. And then on Saturday morning early at 9 o'clock, we will catch up with former Pirate from the Skip Holtz era, J.J. Millbrook. So those are some of the things we have headed your way. Yesterday afternoon, I caught up with Quentin Cotton, tremendous linebacker for East Carolina, back from 2004 to 2008. So go back and check that out on Facebook and our YouTube channel. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already done so. Plenty of good content headed our viewers' way, Dave.
I know his last name is Cotton, and there was a guy that his name was Cotton that ran for local races here in the area. Not getting political, but it was just funny. His hey Bubba, his campaign slogan and the yard sign says "Pick Cotton," and every time I hear "Pick Cotton," I think about Quentin Cotton, because I mean, why would you not pick him as a linebacker? He's so awesome and great stuff there. I can't wait I had to work, unfortunately, yesterday and didn't get a chance to participate, but as a fan of Quentin Cotton, thank you, Quentin, for coming on, because you're one of our all-time favorites, and all the former Pirate players, Bubba, as you know, means a lot to us for whatever sport the men and women that put on the purple and gold. So thanks to him, and thanks to all the future folks that are coming on. And Bubba, thank you for all your hard work. I appreciate it very much for Jamie's show, and all the stuff behind the scenes means a lot.
You're very welcome. I obviously enjoyed doing it, and look forward to the show tonight.
All right. This is the first part of our doubleheader. Thank you, Jamie Shaw. We'll have the show tonight. And until then, we'll take a brief pause for a few hours, and we'll be back right here on the Sports Objective. And we'll see you later on. Go Pirates.